There are many haunted and creepy locations all over the world, but some locations are just so terrifying that you would probably become insane if you would stay there one night all by yourself, with only the company of the ghosts of the dead. Byberry Mental Asylum. Byberry Mental Asylum was a psychiatric hospital located in Pennsylvania. The hospital opened its door to its first patient in 1907. At its peak, Byberry Mental Asylum housed more than 6,000 patients with only 180 attendants. The patients was often beaten, sexually abused, and sometimes tortured by the hospital staff. Suicide was a common death factor amongst the patients. The inhuman treatment of Byberry patients was hidden from the public eye until in 1946. In that year, a journalist named Charlie Lord took photos of the institution and the condition inside. On the photos, you can see a dozen of naked men huddling together and people sleeping on the cold hard concrete floors. The Byberry Mental Asylum was later closed by the government in 1977. Looters came not long after the asylum closed, stealing all the copper piping and wiring, along with other valuable materials. Short after the asylum had been looted, came vandals and smashed every window and started small fires. Explorers and ghost hunters explored the empty halls and the dark haunted tunnels that connect each building. Stories of returning mental patients and satanic cults appear a few years later. One story is about a violent and psychopathic patient with a large knife that hides in the asylum and will slice the throat of anyone in his path. Island of the Dolls. According to the legend, a young girl drowned in the lake while playing with some friends. Locals believe that the girl's spirit is unable to leave the island, and they will not go near the island at night for fear of what they may see. In the 1950s, a man named Juliana Santa Barrera moved to the island with no knowledge about the island's dark history. Julian claimed that as soon as he moved to the island, the little girl began speaking to him. The girl told Julian how she had died and that she was trapped on the island. Julian began to collect dolls for the little girl to play with, but after a while, Julian became worried for his life, after it became harder to appease the young girl's thirst for more dolls. One day his nephew visited the island, when he found his uncle's face down in the water. His body was in the same spot where the little girl had apparently drowned. People that visit the island often speak of the doll's eyes following them, or that they hear creepy whispers from the dolls. Julian's and the little girl's ghost is often seen during the night. Poveglia Island is also known as the Island of Madness and is located in lagoons of Venice in Italy. The island are one of the most haunted locations on the planet. The island was first used to isolate plague victims from the general population during the Roman times. They would bury the dead into large pits all over the island. It is estimated that more than 150,000 bodies were buried on the island during the plague. The island was abandoned after it served its purpose, and it wasn't until many years later, in 1922, that the island became the home to a psychic hospital. Patients would complain to the staff that they would be kept up at night hearing screams from the tortured plague victims. Because the patients were already considered mad, these complaints were just ignored. After a while, doctors started to experiment on the patients, trying to find a cure for insanity. They would often use drills, chisels and hammers to perform lobotomies, and electric shocks was often used. The hospital later closed, and the government owned the island before selling it to a private owner. The new owner abandoned the island shortly after, and wouldn't say anything about what happened during his visit to the island. A few years later, a family sought to buy the island and build a holiday home, but after only one night on the island, the family left. They refused to talk about what happened on the island, but people could see that the daughter of the family had a big open wound on her face. The island is now uninhabited, and it is strictly forbidden to visit the island without the permission from the Italian government. Many psychics have visited the island. They have all been scared to death and would never return, saying that there is a heavy atmosphere of evil and that you can hear the screams of the tortured souls inhabiting the island. One psychic said that after he entered the abandoned hospital, a disembodied voice whispered to him, "Leave immediately and do not return." The Screaming Woods. The Daring Woods, also known as the Screaming Woods, are located in southeast England and is said to be one of the most haunted woods in Britain. The Screaming Woods got its name because of the many reports of people hearing terrifying screams at night. Whispers and footsteps are also often heard on days with thick fog. It is said that the forest is haunted by the many people that have gone missing and died in the forest. In the 18th century, a highwayman was captured by some villagers and tied to a tree and then beheaded. The forest was also the site of a gruesome massacre in 1948. Many people reported seeing strange lights coming from the forest on the night of Halloween. The day after, 20 people were found dead, 11 of whom were children. The strangest part was that the bodies had no wounds, and the autopsies couldn't determine how they had died. A few weeks later, the authorities ended the investigation. Many villagers have also reported seeing black shadows that followed them while they were traveling in the forest. The Regius Asylum. The Regius was a mental hospital located in Athens, Ohio, between 1874 to 1993. During its operation, the hospital treated Civil War veterans, children, and violent criminals suffering from mental disabilities. The hospital had over 2,000 patients by the 1950s. With so many patients and with lack of staff members, would patients often be restrained for days at a time. 5 to 10 patients were living in rooms that were meant for only one patient. They were often beaten and tortured by cruel hospital staff. Many patients didn't get away with only some beating. Some poor patients went through a treatment called lobotomy. They would first electrify the patient unconscious, then roll the eyelid back and insert a thin metal instrument called a leucotomy through a tear duct and into the brain. Then it was dragged back and forth to sever the neural receptors. The consequences of the operation were different for each patient. Some patients died as a result of the operation, and others later committed suicide. Some were left severely brain damaged, others were able to leave the hospital or became more manageable within the hospital. When the hospital later closed, were many of the buildings donated to Ohio University. University students would often tell stories about disembodied screams that could be heard through the long and dark halls, horrifying figures standing in the hospital rooms, smiling or crying. But the most terrifying story of all is about the large stain on the top floor of the building. It all starts on December 1st, 1979. A patient by the name of Margaret Chilling went missing. The hospital staff searched for her for days, but with no luck. It wasn't until 42 days later that her body was discovered, locked in an abandoned room once used for patients with infectious illnesses. Margaret was found completely naked, her clothing neatly folded next to her body. The doctors of the hospital believed that she had died of heart failure. Because she had been dead for several weeks, her body had decayed so much that a Goa imprint of her body had seeped into the concrete. And to this day, the stain of her body can still be seen on the top floor of the asylum. It is said that you can sometimes hear the screams of Margaret trying to escape the room where she died. If we say you had to stay one night at one of the locations mentioned in the video, which one would you pick? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button to support my channel and subscribe for more videos.